Okay, so the government have come up with this new idea. Now, bicycles have been around for well over 100 years, and now everyone used to ride them as kids. It's basically cheap, basically free transportation, more or less. You've got to pay for maintenance and stuff like that, but that's generally about it. It's basically a human-powered device. It's essentially an extension of the human body. Typically, on a bike, you're not going to be going any faster than say 30 miles per hour. That's going like downhill, or unless you're like an absolute professional. The average bicycle weighs about 14 kilos, typically with a rider weight of, say, 80 kilos. So combined weight there, it's under 100 kilos. Typically, we're talking, I'm talking normal bikes here, not cargo bikes and things like that. And, it's like, yes, okay, you can do some damage with a push bike. And yes, you could potentially kill someone with a push bike, but you could say the same thing about pedestrians. I mean, if bicycles have to have insurance, surely to go walk you need to have insurance. I mean, if you don't have a dog, for example, that dog could bite someone. I mean, do you need dog walking insurance now? I mean, should that be a thing? Um, Another thing that I can think of course, is a lot of these days, there's a lot of what I call mobile phone zombies. That's people just staring at their phone, and what they'll do is they'll walk across a road, regardless as to whether there's a car, truck, bike, whatever coming, and just either expect it to stop or just not notice. And this would be in like some roads that are like 40, even a 30-mile-an-hour road. It's still a very bad idea just to blindly walk into traffic. And let's say that pedestrian walks in front of a lorry, and that lorry is then going to instinctively try and swerve the pedestrian to avoid hitting them. But in doing so, there could be a family of four in a small hatchback in the other lane that he's accidentally swerved into to avoid hitting the pedestrian. Because of course, hitting a pedestrian is certain death. He's not going to notice the small car, and the truck hitting the small car is going to be just the same as hitting a pedestrian. So if you need cycling insurance, should pedestrians have insurance as well? I personally think this is absolutely ridiculous. I just think, the whole point of cycling is it's free transportation. It's cheap. Many people do it because they can't afford to run a car. And obviously at the moment, cycling insurance is a good idea if you commute every single day and it's cheap. At the moment, it's dirt cheap, £15 for the year. But I guarantee, as soon as they make it mandatory, that £15 will turn into £150 quite easily. I mean, car insurance, you're typically paying for anything relevant about £1,500 a year on car insurance, and in younger drivers, of course, pay like 3,000, 6,000. It's ridiculous. Insurance is basically just a massive scam, essentially, or at least car insurance. Well, insurance in general is basically a massive scam. If you work out the amount you've paid in car insurance over the last 10 years, you could probably buy another car, or near enough. Say it's £1,500 a year, 10 years, £15,000 quite easily. And in places like America, it's way cheaper. I mean, you get 16-year-olds driving big frigging pickup trucks and stuff like that everywhere. But in the UK, you want to drive a 1.2 litre as a 17-year-old, you're paying nearly £3,000 now. It's absolutely insane. So that's what I mean. If they make this insurance mandatory, then it's going to be really frigging expensive. That's just the way it is. I mean, they could possibly control that. So that's one flip side to the coin. They could have a set limit on how much bicycle insurance is. Maybe make it sort of like a fishing license or something like that. So you pay an X amount and that's it. You do it possibly through the post office or something like that. But and then that basically would, at a minute, don't get me wrong, if you have a crash on a push bike, or your kid has a crash on a push bike and damages someone else's property, you still have to pay for that property damage. There's no, oh, they're a cyclist, they're going to get away with not paying. It's, well, you've done damage, so basically under the Criminal Damage Act, you've got to pay for that damage if it was your fault. So it's absolutely ridiculous that they're just saying, oh yeah, anyone that rides a bike is going to have to pay insurance, and a lot of people will have a bike in their shed and they won't even use it for 2 years, and then they'll just be like, oh, do you want to go to, with the kids to the pub, or the restaurant or whatever, and they'll hop on their bikes and just use it for that one time, and you're going to basically it's just going to put people off a very enjoyable, very safe, really, leisure activity. It's just kind of ridiculous. I mean, the only people that I drive a car as well, and it's not the push bikes that are really a problem. I mean, it takes about, yeah, unless you've got a whole group of them, you can get a group of them that are being a pain in the butt, but usually it's just one cyclist, and it's like not that hard to overtake. I mean, it's just like they're doing 10, 15 miles an hour, and you're gone past them straight away. Whereas you will get on the same road, it's a 60-mile-an-hour limit, you'll get some muppet doing doing 30 miles an hour. They'll be all over the road, probably had a few, and then that's a real pain in the butt to overtake versus that push bike that's going significantly slower. And yeah, that's just, I mean, there is a few things obviously I sort of agree with. You shouldn't run red lights on a push bike, that's just generally a bad idea. Um, I mean, there is a way doing the whole thing of going on the like on the pedestrian, like hopping off the bike and then using the crossing that is green and you can cross on to get over the road. Yeah, that's kind of totally fine because at that point they're basically a pedestrian. And yeah, it's cheeky and it's circumventing the you have to wait thing. But your car's not going to fit on the path, so you can't do that, but they can. So yeah, that's just the way it is. Though I have seen motorcyclists do that as well. Well, that was a particularly bad set of traffic lights that would stay literally red for 10 minutes, and sometimes they would freeze up and both be stuck on red because they were faulty. That was just a set of roadworks, you know how it goes. But yeah, this is also with the whole insurance thing. There is a chance I had a pedestrian run into my car and break my mirror. So you know it was parked. They just run into it. They were jogging and wallop. And yeah, again, it's yeah. So if you need cycling insurance, you should definitely have pedestrian insurance as well. I mean, walking's really irrelevant. Come on, just if you've never tried. People that don't understand this whole cycling thing have never ridden a decent bike. It is far better than walking. Walking sucks. It's going to wear your knees out eventually. Trust me, I know. I've done that. Um, yeah, I used to run cross country at school and stuff like that. I reckon that was one of the big contributing factors. But on a push bike, I'd rather ride a push bike 100 miles than walk 1 mile, and that's not an exaggeration. So yeah, it's just it's just ridiculous. It really, really is. And then there's the whole what they also been going on about speed limits. Yeah, if you can break a speed limit on a bicycle, that speed limit's ridiculously slow. End of. Cars were never built to do 20 miles an hour. Get rid of this silly 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. That is absolutely ridiculous. They go, oh, you have to abide by the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Instead of thinking, hang on, a push bike, your average push bike, is able to break this speed limit. And bicycles are not required by law to have a speedometer. They don't come with a speedometer. And the speedometers you can typically buy are so irrelevant. They will not just, you have to set the tyre size and all that crud. And they're the cheap ones. They're the ones that are like £30. But it is an additional expense and they are awful. Then the batteries die. The better ones are the Garmins. But to make someone pay £300 for a Garmin, and yes, it is £300 for the decent one. I've messed around with the little ones there. Again, the battery, that's the main thing. And they're nice when they work, but their battery doesn't last long enough for it to be like a mandated legal speedometer, in my opinion. Because the battery's going to run out halfway through your ride, then you're not going to have a speedo. So, yeah. Anyway, that concludes this video. I think this new insurance and registration for cyclists is ridiculous. Well, not so much the registration side of it, but yeah, I'll talk about that one in another video. That's another whole subject. Thank you for watching.